First of all, I am disappointed maybe that the Minister Hogan isn't here. I know he was here for the earlier part of my colleague's contribution, but I am disappointed that he hasn't been here to hear the rest. But hopefully he will take on board the. Well, hopefully he'll be able to take on board the comments that I have made, and that my colleague has made. I want to start by saying it's very rarely that I agree with Fianna Fáil, but I must say the previous Speaker, Deputy Collins, called this an attack on rural Ireland. And I think he's right in that. And I think when Fianna Fáil starts saying that this is an attack on rural Ireland, I think the government have a duty to sit up and listen, because Fianna Fáils have been the masters of attacking rural Ireland over the last 15 years. So if anybody knows what an attack looks like, it's them, because they have shaped and led those attacks for many, many years. And indeed, if anybody had the opportunity to read their pre-budget submission, you will see that they haven't finished attacking rural Ireland, because they plan a plethora of charges, from household charges, increased carbon taxes, increased motor taxes, increased excise duties. All of these going to be employed or deployed, attacking people right across society, but in particular in rural Ireland again. But I do say that in genuineness, that people feel that this legislation is an attack on them. They feel that this legislation is discriminatory because it imposes charges and sanctions and imposes offences and fines if there is non-compliance on a section of the population of this state, them being the 441,000 people who have a septic tank in their backyard. And people are genuinely concerned out there, and people are really, really afraid. And the Minister said in his speech today, and a repeat of a comment he made in the Seanad, that people in rural Ireland have nothing to fear from this legislation. Well, if the Minister is adamant about making that statement a reality, then he needs to ensure that he amends the legislation to ensure that we have the type of inspection, that we have the compliance with the EU directive that should have been complied with as far back as 1975, but previous governments haven't done so. Well, but he needs to amend it and take out the areas where people are feared. And the areas where people are afraid in this legislation are a number of areas. First of all, there are people out there who simply cannot afford to pay an additional €50 charge. And that might be, a dramatic statement, or maybe ministers simply do not believe the fact that there are people out there that broke. But the reality is there are people there that are that broke. And this government makes no determination as to whether the person who has to pay that €50 charge is the most affluent person in society, or if it's the family that has gone to St Vincent de Paul the week before to ask for clothes for their children, or a voucher to put fuel in their tank so that they can keep their house warm this Christmas. And that's what the problem is here. There's a lack of respect for what's happening out there within the confines privately of many, many households that this charge is going to be applied to. The second thing is that there is a great fear in rural Ireland that when the EPA send their army of inspectors out to inspect the septic tanks, to what standard will they be inspecting them? And very simply, the Minister can resolve this issue, because the Minister has stated time and time again that the EPA will not be applying the 2009-2010 guidelines, but will be just ensuring that the septic tanks are functional and not causing pollution. Which means that if the septic tank was granted planning permission in 2000 or in 1960, then it will be based on the standards that apply that time. So what we in Sinn Féin are challenging the Minister to do is to publish the regulations, which he said that will accompany this bill, to publish the regulation before he asked any TD to take a leap of faith and put the hands of 441,000 rural dwellers into the hands of the inspectors appointed by the EPA. We on this side of the House are not going to give the EPA a blank cheque to go digging up back gardens and to issue guidance to rural dwellers that they have to bring their septic tanks up to the standards that didn't exist at the time when they legally got planning permission. So the Minister has stated time and time again that that is not going to be the case. So publish the regulation, publish the guidance so that we can have a proper informed discussion. And I know that we here have asked the Minister privately in relation to that there, and I am glad that he is considering such a move, because it will quell the fear in areas across the state. This piece of legislation is discriminatory. It is an attack on rural Ireland. There should be no registration fee. There should be a grant aid to remedy any septic tanks that are not compliant with the regulation, and it should be funded through General Exchequer. There is a need for the Minister to engage positively with the opposition in relation to the amendments that we're putting down, and particularly to put the statements that he's given verbally into the legislation, and particularly that the EPA guidelines that will apply to the inspections will be the guidelines that were there at the time of construction of the tank or the system, that grant aid will be provided for income linked of those in low incomes, and that what he needs to do further is say that the registration fee will be waived. Gurmaigad.